We're not live, are we?
It says live at the top. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't see that at my top. Okay, I see schedule. Okay. So what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Four Elements. I'm Wind,
I'm fire.
I'm water.
I'm Earth.
and tonight we got a very hot topic. We're going to talk about the economics and high calculus of dating, the dating game. So before I begin, let me just say this: is that you know this might be a trigger moment for some of you all. And I don't want that to be a trigger moment. I want you guys to be cool and calm and just listen to the full conversation. And maybe we can all come to a great medium at the very end. Um, so let's talk about it. So we are in the most, we're in the period of the most singleness and the most individuality that our community or the U.S. has ever been in. And so obviously there is an issue, or there are some issues that have created this. And the unfortunate thing is that many of us don't fully understand what these issues truly are, because if we really did, perhaps we can actually solve them and have community again. So tonight, we're going to talk about economics. Economics is the study or the science, the analysis of scarce resources. In this situation that we're talking about in the dating sphere, what are those scarce resources? We all know that pound for pound, there are more women than men. Statistically, we know, in addition to that, that with respect to Black men, there's a tremendous amount of incarceration, gang activity, drug and alcohol abuse, and other issues that adversely impact us. So as a consequence of all that, there is a scarcity of quality Black men to attach themselves to Black women. Whenever there's scarcity, there becomes additional competition. That competition, in this case, is amongst women. So women do all sorts of things to, gain the upper hand on the next woman, to accomplish or to arrive at that so-called goal, which is marriage or attachment. The unfortunate thing is that some men that are seemingly quality take advantage of this situation. and they date and engage a multitude of women without having the appropriate or proper, let's say, intentions. And so when that happens, the I don't think it's necessarily an intended consequence, but the unintended consequence of that is anger and fury of women. And so there is a circular mess that's going on in our society that needs to stop and end. So I'm going to stop right there and let the other guys chime in about what I said. And then we'll go deep inside the economics and mathematics behind it.
Went or Earth. That was a hard sigh right there, buddy.
No, it was, yeah, it was a hard side, because I just, whenever somebody bring up like our prison population, it's always like I always have to give pushback on that, because it's so overstated based upon the population of black men. And I don't remember the stats off the top of my head, and the moment Wynn said that, I just jumped online. I was like, what is this stat again? I don't remember the exact stat, but it's not, it's not like, we're there's only like about 1.5 million men in prison, about 700,000 men who are in jails. And so even if you said all that entire population was all black men, that's not even half the population of black men in the country. It's a very, very small percentage. And so whenever I hear that stat, it's the percentage is it's very small. So even I don't want to just say the number off the top of my head. I just don't remember the number off the top of my head based upon the percentage from a population perspective. But it's not like whenever I hear that, it's always in the context of like a critical mass. Like it is a huge, huge, huge issue. And the reality is it's an issue, yes, but it's not that big of an issue as it's pushed to be. Because we may make up the highest number of people in prison, but from a population size, it's actually small. Only 10. This that I do remember. Only just over 10% of all the crimes are 10% of the people in our community commit all those crimes. Just a little bit. It's just a little bit over 10%, and they keep repeating that. I read the stat. I went and talked to an officer. My car got broke in, and he was like, we know who do all this stuff. He said it's only a handful of people. He said we know where they are, we know where they live. And he said every time they get arrested, all crime goes down. The moment they get out of jail, they know who's doing the crimes, and they just go. It's the same people, over and over and over. So it's not like this population that's just continuously growing and growing and growing. So I always get pushback with that particular stat. And when we talk about gang activity, the number of people who are actually in gangs, it's not that many people compared to the population size itself. So I always get pushback when I hear those stats, because I think that generally they're just overblown. But that's just me. And it just makes, it just makes, brothers look a certain way. And I'm always conscious of our image and the image that we portray, because we can control all of that. We shouldn't allow a handful of people to control the image based upon a small segment of the population, period. You know, most of the people, 90% of the people are good people, period. They're not out running amok, period. It's just this small percentage of people that do all the crime. And I always say, across the board, period, 10% of the people in any organization, regardless of the size, will do all the work. 90% of the people either benefit favorably or unfavorably, but depending on the work that's done, period. That's just the way that life works. I don't care if it's a favorable organization or goal or unfavorable. 10% of the people are going to do all the work across the board. But anyway, let me land right there because I can talk about this all night.
I think your perspective is got merit, Earth, for sure. Regarding the overall statistics about the prison population, but I do want to circle back on a point that Wynn made to confirm that there is a gap. I'm gonna pull some stats. I just pulled some stats while Earth was talking, so let's just talk about that real quick and what that gap means, because this is the conversation, the economics of what we see of our circumstances, not to mention the cultural influences. So let's just talk about raw data. So African American population in America, for round numbers, let's call it 40 million. It's probably 42, 43, but let's just call it 40 million, right? So I got a less than 10% delta in my stat, 40 million. Stay with me. Of the 40 million people within the African American community, ages 25 to 54, 34% of that populace is married. Now you compare that to Caucasian counterparts, same age range, 67%, 2/3 are married. So 1/3 compared to 2/3. Let's talk about the disparity between the number of raw number of women compared to men. There is 88 African American men in the U.S. to every 100 African American women. So you have a negative 12 delta per 100 people. All right. And so then you layer in that 1.5 million that Earth just talked about that is incarcerated in addition to that. And you begin to get present to the reality that a monogamous one-for-one relationship, a traditional nuclear family as a model doesn't work.
It's actually 600,000 and something. It's not that 1.5. That's the total population. That's the total.
Right.
But it's only
600,000, a couple 100,000.
Yeah, it's about. I don't know the exact number, but it's way less than it's not even a million. So, but anyway, go ahead. I want to clarify that.
Yeah, I'll grab that. I'll grab the stat whenever water goes. But I just wanted to make sure that we're cognizant and conscientious of the fact that there is a delta, that it is far from one for one, and then when you add cultural influences, and you add the reality to Earth's point that when there's scarcity, people behave out of the norm. We see it when the economy's bad, right? We see it in the low income and most impoverished communities in the US, really in the world, really, where there's poverty, there typically is crime. And so where there's scarcity in men, that not only incentivizes or creates a space for women to behave more competitively and maybe do some things and behave in a way that's not ideal or out of character for the reality that they want on the basis that they don't believe is possible for them or the basis that they believe they have to. It also creates on the other side an occurrence with men that I don't have to be as honorable as I could be to get the same spoils with regards to women. I could just show up. I can Netflix and chill. I can buy you a Birkin, right? Sometimes I could just go to the club and buy you a couple drinks, if we're being honest. And so I think there are adverse impacts as a result of said delta that impact both genders in perpetuity. And hopefully this conversation sheds a light on what's happening from an economic perspective, the economics of dating, the economics of relationships, that cause somebody, male or woman, to look and take a step back and think, "Oh my gosh, am I operating by default as a function of said scarcity? Am I operating by default as a benefactor of of patriarchy and the fact that, you know, if I'm a man and I make six figures and I'm halfway decent looking and I can put together a decent sentence or not, that I have to pick of the litter? I mean, I have options. I have more options as an African American man from a partnership perspective than our women do. So yeah, we just getting into it. I know we're just getting started. I'm gonna toss it over to Brother Water.
Wow. Like, what are we talking about, guys? What in the world are we talking about? We're talking about prisons, dating, calculus, economics. I don't know what we're talking about. So I'm going to default to the comments because I'm lost. But I'm hoping that you know, the comments are gonna give me some guidance here. Courtney Butler actually says, let me pull her comment up here. She says people can date outside of their ethnicity. Okay, so on the side of, I'm just going to play devil's advocate on both sides of this argument here. Okay, on the side of there is scarcity for black women, right? Let's just, because this is what I'm hearing. There's scarcity. There's no black men for black women is what I'm. That was part of what I think I heard the conversation being. That wind, not, you don't have to shake your head, fire. That wind was initially saying, so maybe this could contribute to that, but also it can open up the pool for women who are open to dating people outside of their ethnicity. Okay, so that's a good point that Courtney Butler made. And then another one that is a little snafu in the argument here. Danny Thomas says, "Why don't y'all ever count gay men?" Question mark. They also aren't available to women. So any person that was born a male, let's kind of get it. You know, like, let's make sure that we're all encompassing. Anyone that was born a male and no longer is attracted to women, or, you know, from based upon their being part of the LGBTQ community, women may not be attracted to them, right? There's all kind of different things. Maybe they might still be attracted to women, but women may say, nah, you know, I'm not, like, because of who you are, I don't want to be with you or whatnot. So that may lessen the pool. Just to kind of engage with the comments here to say, you know, these may contribute to the scarcity of, so in this case, this may contribute to the scarcity of available black men for black women. And then there's the other side of the coin where there's the ethnicity thing. So if men are dating outside their ethnicity, it even shrinks the pool even further. However, if women are open to that, then it'll open the pool up for themselves. I know
So,
we
yeah.
went in a lot of directions, bro. A lot of directions.
So we went in the direction that I want to go. I mean, everything is perfect. It's always perfect between us four. So with respect to Danny's comment, yes, Danny, you're correct. That is certainly people that involve themselves in so-called alternative lifestyles would not necessarily be in the pool of eligible men that would partake in heterosexual attachment, marriage, dating, right? And Courtney is also correct that women, both women and men, have the opportunity to go outside of their ethnicity, their race. In economics, that is termed as a substitute. So, for example, Pepsi and Coca-Cola would be the top brands for soda, right? But your local brands of cola would be regarded as a substitute. Now, the question is, does that substitute taste as good or is just as good as that top tier brand? Do our women Or do we really want to date outside of our race and ethnicity? And for the most part, the answer is no. So even though those substitutes are viable solutions, that's not really the solution that we want to get to. So let's talk about some solutions. So at some point in this conversation, we're going to come up with some solutions that are more viable than those substitutes. So let me just take a step back and get to how we got here. So back in the day, with our great grandparents, our grandparents, 1+1 = 2. But given technology, given scientific breakthroughs, given high mathematics, 1+1 is no longer 2. 1+1 might equal 11. 1+1 might equal 1 billion, depending upon how deep you want to go into sophisticated mathematics. So subsequent to the Civil War, there was the Industrial Revolution. Subsequent to that, well, let me stop right there. The Industrial Revolution, I would say, lasted a little bit subsequent to the Civil War, and it kind of ended around World War II. With the Industrial Revolution, machines, in addition to people, increased productivity. Whenever you have an increase in productivity, you have an increase in wealth. But the question is, who partook in that wealth? As Black people, we did not necessarily partake in that wealth to the extent that other people did. Of course, we got jobs, and we began to become educated and things of that sort. But that further extended the wealth gap. Where do I want to go from here?
Feel it, bro. Don't think about it. Flow with it. What you got?
Oh yeah, I know. Even though we had better jobs, right, and better education, and we passed that on to our families, that experience and that exposure wasn't necessarily best for us as a whole. And the reason why I say that is that whenever there's an increase in wealth, there are lifestyle changes. So technology impacted us in such a way that it impacted lifestyle. And when I say lifestyle, I'm talking about everyday habits, everyday attitudes, everyday behaviors. So where in the early 1900s or before, we had very cohesive families because of the additional wealth that was created, because of the additional productivity and convenience that technology provided, we actually changed internally. we changed in a manner in which we conducted ourselves with each other, our interactions with each other. It was the beginning of our arrogance. So I'm going to pause right there just for a second and let me just hear what the other guys are thinking and hearing.
What's her name? Danny, like her statement. I was sitting here like just running the numbers myself, do my own calculations. So, and she asked why aren't LGBT men included, because the number is really insignificant. Because as of 2022, 7.1% of people identified themselves as a LGBT of the total population. I was looking for the breakdown based upon races, but I hadn't got to that part yet. Of that 7.1%, 34% identified themselves as gay or lesbian, which breaks that number down to at only 2.something% identify themselves as gay or lesbian. Then you have to break that down based upon gender of the total population. Then you have another percentage, a higher percentage identify themselves as gay and lesbian, what I think was like 50-something%. Not gay, but as bisexual, excuse me. As bisexual, and it goes into like transgender is even lower, and some other stuff. But it's such an insignificant number, but we always include that in this population as though it's a huge impact, but at the end of the day, it's not that big of an impact. Just because it's something you see in the media and on TV that's pushed all the time, it doesn't mean that it's such these such huge numbers. Because when you go and look at the stats yourself, and then you have to do the math to start breaking down, you have to do your own math to break down the stats to have them make sense. It's not that significant of a number. So I just wanted to address that piece really quick.
Well, whether it might not necessarily be significant, it had to be added into the mathematics so that we can aggregate all of the men or the so-called resources that were not necessarily available to the opposite sex. So so I don't want to necessarily get into the minutia of it. What I want to talk about is what really matters is that in aggregate, it is impactful. And we in a situation that we need to resolve, or we need to talk about solutions so that we can resolve it. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think we have bigger fish. If I think this is something that's greater than that has a larger impact than that. We can sit and focus on a gnat. If a gnat is sitting there bugging me, but a bee is stinging me in the butt, which one am I going to address? I'm going to address the bee, not the gnat.
Absolutely.
That's just my view. I get it has to be, it's a number that needs to be added because it's an aggregate number. However, what is impacting you the most? That's the thing that you address. And I'm honestly not interested in gnats.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Where's the bee? Let's talk about the bee. What do you think? What do you perceive is what's impacting us most?
For me, like the thing that impacts us most is really we just have, at the end of the day, a bunch of like the blind leading the blind. That's the thing that's impacting us the most. It's like people are out without direction. Now, not having direction comes from many different places. It comes from lack of direction from media, from parents, from the educational systems, from governmental systems, from all of those things come together. There's just a lack of direction, lack of understanding. Because if you ask the average person, what is the foundation of a relationship? Ask the average man, what do you know about women? Ask the average woman, what do you know about men? It's not going to be the essence of who we are. It's going to be some other stuff. It's not going to be that. We don't know each other. There's a lack of education that exists in regards to who men are, who women are. There's so many women who I've literally had women who say, "Man, I thought all men were dumb." It's like, what? Where'd you get that from? And men will say whatever they say about women, but none of it is true. It's just a lack of education. We don't know each other. That's the B at the end of the day. It's not all that other stuff. It's just all the other stuff is just nets. That's all it is.
Yeah, I was actually progressing up to that conversation actually.
Yeah.
So it's
and she-
beautiful that you got there. Because
Yeah,
what I was going to say is that, like I said, one plus one doesn't equal two anymore. Back in the day, in the 1900s, boy meets girl, boy gets married to girl. They buy a white picket fence house. They got a dog and 2.5 children. It's more sophisticated these days. That's where it comes in the high mathematics. These days, dating relationships is like multivariate calculus. Multivariate calculus is having multiple variables in high mathematics. And what the problem is what you alluded to was confusion. It's chaos. We don't even understand what those variables are for one another to actually attach to one another. We don't know what each other, what matters most to one another. Dating is not simple where you could just meet somebody and live happily ever after. It's so we are so much more complex in 2022 than in 1922. And that is a function of technology and how mathematics we have evolved to another place. We are different human beings. And we haven't gotten it in our heads that clearly that we are so much different. And that's the reason why we're having a problem of attachment. So I'm gonna park it right there because I know Fire got a lot to say. But or you, Earth, go ahead.
Before fire goes, I just want to say that I don't necessarily agree that dating is complex, as well as that there's a scarcity of men out there for women. I think that what I agree really where Earth was going with this is that there's a bigger issue is that, look, if we carry our limiting beliefs around about how complex dating is or how there's no man out there or how no one loves me, then if you carry that around, then that's what you will get. I promise that anybody who actually carries around some sort of limiting belief around their dating life, they will actually get that, because any opportunity for something different to show up won't even match. It won't even look right to you. So to me, I mean, I agree that probably on a bigger scale, if we want to look at it on a macro scale, and we want to really be statisticians about it all, I think that maybe there's some validity in what you guys are saying, but to me that's not really impactful for the elementals. Like, the elementals out here are women. There are single women who are actually listening to this. There are single men. There are men in relationships. There are women in relationships who are listening to this. And so, coming from a scarcity mentality about what's not there, or coming from a mentality of lack, to me, if you see that, you're going to get that. To me, it's that simple. And if it really looks complex to you to date, or the dating world looks complex, then it's going to be complex, because you're not going to allow it to be simple. you're not gonna like the things that just hand delivered to you. It won't look right. You're like, that can't be right. That's a trick or something. You know, it won't even look right to you. So to me, I hear what you know what you're saying when I'm saying that, like, to me it just looks a little bit different than that. I just wanted to chip that in before fire went in.
Yeah, I think the individual perspective is what carries our experience of life, and what also validates our reality and what's true for us. I see what you're doing, and I understand, overstand where you're coming from, what you're attempting to build. I think that for us to get to solution mode, what he was trying to do was make sure we understood root cause, because to be sure we're fixing the right thing. And I think Earth accelerated the conversation, and we appreciate that. But from an individual perspective, like, this isn't a pie in the sky conversation for me. And quite frankly, I don't have a dog in the fight because I've been married for 20 years almost. So I'm telling you what I see and what I experience as a married person, watching my single brothers and sisters, watching the 1,700 members of the Ultimate Team group squabble and miscommunicate and misunderstand one another on a daily basis. I am telling you, regardless as to what any individual says from their own perspective, that there is a gap. That gap is real. It is not made up, and it is not something that you can pray away or sit there and convince yourself that my good man is coming from around the corner, and you go outside and then you meet him. Because if that were the case, why are you single? So the thing is real. But I think, to Earth's point, he's spot on in that we don't know one another. And that is where I like to take the conversation a little bit more deeply. I think it's even more dangerous than that, brothers. I think that we think we know each other. Because if we knew that we didn't know each other, then that operates in the domain of that which I know I don't know. And I can go seek out intentionally the information and the skill set and the tools and the distinctions to understand my gender counterpart. But we're not in mass because we think we know who they are. And that is where we are, my friends. Echo chambers, barbershops, podcasts of dudes talking about what women are and how women are. Echo chambers, salons, massage parlors, wines and cheeses of sisters talking about who they believe men are based on what? Their experiences. And when someone experiences something, it is very difficult to pry them from their sacred cow or their interpretation of those experiences, to reframe how the other sex occurs for you. And we do it in blanket statements, right? It's like the 5 men you dated were dogs, and so all men are dogs. The 5 girls you dated cheated on you, and so all, we live as though these things are absolutely true. So I'll take a step back and just put it out there. Earth is spot on that we don't know each other. But I think it's a little deeper than that, because we actually think we know each other, even though we can see the miscommunication occurring 24/7, 365. You don't know. You don't know that you don't know. And until you admit and look in the mirror and acknowledge, what I've been thinking about women ain't it. It ain't working. I'm single. I keep bumping my head. They don't understand me. I don't think they listen. Same thing from the women's side. These guys don't get it. I don't know what's wrong with them. I said what I said. He interpreted something else. He's making it difficult. I'm exhausted. Until we look in the mirror and say, you know what? I really got some work to do on understanding my brothers and my sisters, my kings and my queens. Like, I really got some work to do because I'm missing it. And that, to me, is the genesis of transformation. Like, the awareness is only part of it, right? Getting to solution mode, you can't get to solution mode until you have the awareness and desire to change and the knowledge to change. In that order. Awareness that there's a gap, there's a disconnect somewhere. I got the desire to fix that because I want to be in a life partnership where I want to build with my king or my queen. I want to be in a loving relationship. and the knowledge to change, actually how to communicate, actually how to listen to one another with great empathy and generosity without judgment, from love. That's the skill that's missing. It's a communication skill. And I know we talked about economics and we, went all the way around the mulberry bush, but that economics is real. I'm a businessman. Okay. What happens when there's too much inventory in business? Things go on sale. Why do things go on sale? Because the value set by the marketplace at the time has changed. Why has it changed? Because there's more supply than there is demand. That's why when is using economics as a principle, high calculus, to bring this point home. That's what we're talking about. And that's why we talked about the stats about there being more women than men, because it causes us to behave differently at the cellular level based on the circumstances and the conditions of the field in aggregate. Individuals like myself, individuals like the sister who said, I'm not living that scarcity life. I'm holding space for a good man. My man's around the corner. Sis, you keep that attitude. You keep that attitude. Absolutely 100%. But the truth of the matter is that all of your sisters ain't going to get a man. All of your sisters not going to get a brother. Let me say that. All of your sisters, it's just not possible unless we operate under a different model. Monogamy, 1-for-1 is not possible because it's not a 1-for-1 type of relationship. That's all. So understanding why we behave this way and how we got here is important. And knowing what the root cause is, as Earth said, is really communication and really knowing one another. Let's go there. So how can we know one another better? I'm gonna pause right there. How can we actually know one another better?
That's easy. If we think about language, what do we say in our language? We talked about it maybe a show or two ago. Women will never know men. Men will never know women if we can't be friends. It is virtually impossible. The only way that the four of us know each other is because we became friends. If we did not become friends, we would not know each other. So when we sit there and we spread this, I call it foolishness, it's propaganda about, oh, men and women can't be friends. Men will always want to sleep with you. Women beware, men are dangerous because they, it creates this huge imbalance. Because generally people of the opposite sex may really want to just be friends. And that's it. But we have this thing in our language that is not possible. That there's always some ulterior motive. So we'll never, it's impossible for us to get to know each other if we can't even just be friends. But we don't give the space in our language to be friends. And as long as we don't give the space in our language to be friends, it's not going to happen. We're not going to get to know each other, know who each other are. And it's always going to be this foolishness. Because men are not going to want to be friends with women because they're going to think, possibly, I'm making this part up, oh, if I'm friends with her, eventually I'm going to want something from her sexually. And women may think, making this up, oh, he wants to be my friend. According to what they say, he wants something from me sexually. So we can't be just friends, period. So I'll land right there.
Ooh.
Let it go, fire.
That was good. I mean, dang, that got my heart rate going because I'm gonna share and then I'm gonna spin it to you or Water, right? Again, I'm a practitioner of these topics and distinctions because I want to be a better version of me daily, like dead serious. And what I got listening to Earth is, my wife has a certain level of esteem in my consciousness, in my interpretation of the word wife, has a certain level of esteem, that comes with it. But for me, when I create or generate my wife as my best friend, there's just There's just certain things that you don't do to your, you know what I'm saying? There's just certain things, some boundaries that you won't cross with your best friend. You know, there's certain levels of pain that you won't allow your best friend to experience. That I'm just speaking for myself. That the wife thing is like, that's I guess that's kind of what men do, and but to generate women as our friends first, or sister, or however you need to frame it. For me, when he said it, it clicked like, oh snap! I don't see her as some subordinate that should be underneath me or behind me. When I see her as my best friend, she is my feminine equivalent. And so there's a certain level of mutual respect that goes with that. Her desire to be heard is just as important as mine. Her desire to be gotten is just as important as mine. Her feelings on whatever matter is just as important as my thoughts on the same subject matter. And if I take another step back, when I bring my logical mind, not to say that she's illogical, but dominant, right? And her emotional mind to the table, making joint decisions, comprehensive, collective, team-based decisions, considering both of our perspectives as valid, 100% valid. We make a decision that we both can move forward on. She had input that was considered. I had input that was considered. We thought about the end in mind, or our end goal, our end game, and then we make a decision. And then we move forward. Sometimes we compromise, sometimes she compromises. We don't even see it that way. So that friend, that to not knowing one another and thinking that we do, and not being one another's friends, let's solve that. How do we become friends? Let's unpack this thing. How do we become friends, Water? When? How do we become friends?
Water.
We become friends by seeing each other as human beings. I think that so many times when we see someone that we consider a potential mate, we see them as an object.
Come on,
both
Water.
men and women do it.
Yeah.
So men see it as an object for physical type of gains. Women see it as an object for emotional type gains. And either way, we see that person as an actual role in our life. And we don't just see them as a human being. And it's much easier for us to do that when it's the same sex, because a lot of times you don't really want anything from, if, like if I'm making a friends with one of my, like if I meet a guy and we, so I snowboard, right? Earth and I are big into snowboard. So, sometimes I go alone and then I'll just meet a dude and we're like, hey man, what's up? Let's roll. And we start hanging out. Like we're having fun. However, if it were a female, it's a little bit of awkwardness, hey, and there's awkwardness in my mind. Like, man, she's kind of cute. She's fly. I mean, look at the body or whatever. And in her mind, she's kind of like, oh man, this is odd. He might try to ask for my number or something. So there's all these kind of things. Maybe that's going on. Maybe that's not. But what I'm saying is that those types of things come into play. And I think that if we actually just saw each other as human beings, we could be friends with opposite sex.
Hey, the comment said Water is telling it right tonight. They was on your top last week in Water, but this week you redeemed yourself.
Hey, I'm glad. Everyone can redeem themselves given the opportunity.
Broken clock is right twice a day.
2 times.
There you go.
Earth.
No, I agree with Water. It's just how we view one another. That's what it is at the end of the day. And if we just, if we could just be upfront with one another from the get-go, that makes a huge difference. Period. I was Now it's a long story, but anyway, if we can just do that off the riff, I mean that makes a huge difference. Huge difference. But yeah, I mean I agree with water. Totally.
So where the multivariate calculus comes in is that, you know, some of us are vegan, some of us are not, some of us are Christian, some of us are Buddhist, some of us are Muslim. Some of us do this and some of us do that. You know, there's a multitude of uh, permutations, you know, that could be arrived at, right? But
Yeah.
you guys said it right. We need to simplify things and attach ourselves to people that we have commonalities to, genuine commonalities, genuine values, genuine principles, and establish those deep friendships, those deep connections. You know, everything is so surface these days. And it starts off with the intention, right? You got to have good intentions. You know, many years ago, we all learned that context is decisive. You know, the manner in which you see things, you know, is going to correspond with your behavior, your actions. And as a consequence, the results that you get. So if you don't see things appropriately, you're not going to get the right results, the results that you want and deeply desire. So you have to engage in new things, in a new way of thinking, a new way of being to get better results. So I'll leave it right there because I know Fire got something to say.
Well, I think it's important to know what your intentions are, and that your intentions are generated from a place of of nothing or love or anything that is the absence of fear. You fill in the blank. Because I think when you insert fear into the conversation, I think that was some of the blowback that you were getting earlier in the conversation, when is because people didn't see where you were going. I knew where you were going, so I was patient when you were talking about scarcity. And so people may have interpreted that as, oh, here we go with the fear. Not that wasn't your intention, right? And we eventually got there. But when you are somebody from fear, you say to yourself, I desire a loving, lasting, sustainable relationship, but I'm giving up on that because I've been hurt multiple times. And now I formed this belief to protect myself from experiencing said hurt again and again and again and again in perpetuity, is that, you know, I'm on a dude diet, or I'm single forever, or I'm never going to marry a woman. I'm never going, I'm just going to date women and have a harem. You make those decisions based on the belief that you can't get what you want, what you truly desire. And so from that place, if you truly desire a life partnership, then you would set your intentions on actually getting to know women, one at a time. I think back, my wife and I were friends first. We were friends for like 8 months, like platonic friends. That was my homie. Yeah. And then I started to have feelings for her, absolutely, and vice versa. But the foundation was friendship. And I would tell you without a shadow of a doubt, we wouldn't have made it had our foundation not been friendship. Number two is, to Water's point, I intentionally build a moat around my heart and my mind so as to not pervert it or allow it to be perverted by members of the opposite sex. And so if you're not my wife, for me, there's a little hack. If you're not my wife, you're my sister. If you're not my wife, you're my sister. And to think about you in any context outside of that is like, in my mind, in my soul, that's like incest. You know what I'm saying? And so by default and by design, by my choice, how I set my mind up is that all that I can do, all that I'm capable of, is wanting what's best for you as your brother, without perversion, without any sexual thought. So to what it can be done. Somebody in the comments said we can start by practicing on our siblings and our cousins. 100%. That's real family, right? That's real blood. Develop that muscle. Look at the dynamics of that relationship, but how you care for them. how you listen to them, how you acknowledge and validate them. Um, Contrast that to how you behave with people who aren't your siblings and cousins of the opposite sex. So that's a great place to start. That's a good point. I'll
Well,
pause right there.
it actually starts with ourselves. You know, we met over 10 years ago, right? And we met, doing a program of substance, something that would move the ball forward in our lives. We were intentional about that. And so, as I always say, to have a great life, you must examine yourself at all times and do things that will move the ball forward in your life. That means education, training programs. All of us on this podcast have spent hours and hours and days and months and a tremendous amount of money improving ourselves, learning things that we weren't cognizant or privy to. You are seeing the result of a tremendous amount of added value throughout the years. And I'm not saying that we're perfect or anything like that, but it's just an example of what things look like if you put in work. Self-awareness is putting in work. And you can't have a functional relationship if you are not self-aware. You can't relate to anybody of substance if you are not self-aware and conscious to a particular degree. So I'll park it right there. We got 3 minutes. What do you guys got to part with?
Now I'll go last since I got the next show.
So let's start with water, then go to earth, and then I'll go, and then you go fire. Clockwise.
So then I'll just echo what Wynn was just saying, that, it definitely starts with ourselves. I would take it a step further and say that it starts with loving yourself. So to me, all of this talk about relationship is a moot point without the relationship with yourself. And without loving yourself, you don't have any love to offer anyone else. So to me, starting with yourself is a great point. And then just starting to love yourself before, maybe you just don't do any kind of other work, but just loving yourself. I think the rest of everything else starts to cascade once you actually just fall in love with yourself and actually express the love that you have for yourself in your life. How that manifests a lot differently for a lot of different people. However, I would say that when you think in terms of relating to other people, a lot of people don't have a healthy relationship with themselves. And it goes back to what we were saying about scarcity mentality. How people, I would say that the thought stream that we have going on in our mind constantly, those types of things, for a lot of people, that's self-defeating. And if that thought stream were to, that to me takes work. That's a muscle. No one's ever taught that, or I say very few people are taught that. You have to just kind of learn how to stumble upon that. But if you can turn that thought stream into a self-love, then I think that relating to other people will be a breeze. That's what I have.
Okay. So everything that Water said, and I would add to that, we have to be clear about, once we've gotten the love of ourselves handled, we have to begin to be very clear about what we are genuinely attracted to. Let us start to be very clear about that. Not what your friends are attracted to, not what the media says or whomever says is attractive. What is genuinely attractive to you? Period. And just because somebody, and what I mean romantically, just because somebody's attractive, I always say there are women who are very attractive, but I'm not romantically attracted to them. Like, for example, take Beyonce. She's very attractive, but I'm not romantically attracted to her. I would never shoot my shot at her. I just wouldn't. That's just not. It's not what I like. So I'm very clear about what I'm genuinely attracted to. Period. And then once you can narrow that down, then actually your dating pool opens up exponentially. This is for men and women. Period. It just does. When you go after what you are genuinely attracted to. And that is generally someone, when you see them, there's an attraction there, but you cannot put your finger on exactly what it is. It is nothing physical about the person. You just see like, man, there's something that is just, drawing me to this person. That will be someone who I would classify as you being genuinely attracted to. Period. When you sit there and say, oh man, she is or he is blah blah blah, then that's something that attraction is based upon something else. And I argue that that's not genuine. That's something else that's been taught. That's like learned attractiveness. But genuine attractiveness is irrespective of everything else. You're just attracted to that person, and it's a very natural, very organic attraction. If we allow ourselves to be in that space, your dating pool and success in dating just expands exponentially. Period. Because you cannot put your finger on that one. It goes way beyond swag. It is something that is on a spiritual level. I know what it is. I could explain to you what it is, but it would take a minute to explain it. It's not swag at all. It has something. It is spiritual. It has something to do with your star. But I'm not even going to go down that road. That's for another day. That's what genuine attractiveness is. But yeah, I'll just park right there. That's it.
So I will say that of all the elements, I am the provocateur. I will always challenge us and challenge our thinking to go to another level. But I promise you that in our episodes, when we bounce things around with one another, at the end of the day, we will always have a soft and beautiful landing. So for the ladies, I will say this. Don't consider the scarcity. Simply be yourself at all times. Continue to build in yourself on the inside. Get the necessary coaching, get the necessary counseling, get the necessary education to improve yourself, to better yourself, and be humble about it. And when you do that, you are likely to attract the right person for you. Everybody's not necessarily for you, but you don't want to perpetrate a fraud and front and be something that you're not and get yourself in a sticky situation and have adverse outcomes and then be upset about it and blame everybody on the opposite side. Simply be yourself, love yourself, and good things will happen. Go ahead, Fire.
Man, my brother's be coming with the heat. I gotta I be sitting there waiting, and then I'm like, oh, can't say that. That I already covered that. So I have to find something of value to say when I go last. And so here's what I got from Spirit. From my sisters. Do not allow the conditions of the field in the dating sphere to influence you to compromise your integrity. I don't care how much inventory we got. Your integrity is not for sale. It's not going on sale. And it should never be diluted by circumstances, even if the statistics are something that causes you to take a step back. You set the price of you value your worth. It's called self-worth. You set the price of that. And you don't budge. You don't budge. No matter how lonely you get, you do not budge. If you want a man of your own, don't you go sleeping with somebody else's man. Y'all know what I'm talking. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not a provocative dresser, don't you go doing the tooting your booty up in social media and grabbing filters to make yourself look like an IG model so you can catch a fish. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's your brother talking to you. I come on, I'm with you. I'm your biggest champion. They can call me a simp. They can call me, a caker, trying to butter up. They call me whatever they want. I'm good on friends. I got my brothers. I got my queen. I got my kids. I'm good on friends. I'm going to give you the truth. Just like I give my real blood sister, just like I give my daughter. All right, fellas. Don't deflect. Don't run. Don't hide. As a man, I know it's in us. We're wired to fix things. Car's broke, we're going to tinker, we're going to figure it out. Seek is leaking, we're going to figure it out. Computer's not working right, we're going to figure it out. Flat tire, we're going to change that thing. But when it comes to relationships and communication, who do we become in that context? What happened to Mr. Fix-It? Mr. Fix-It becomes Mr. Get his SHIT off. Or Mr. Fix-It becomes Mr. Cynical and Resigned. Mr. Fix-It becomes Mr. Deflect. It's all your fault. The way it is, the way it's broken because you don't do this and you don't do that. My message to my brothers from love as your brother is don't look. I know people will say, Rob, you a talented 10th Negro. You a 1%er, right? Like, most people don't think like you or feel like you. I don't necessarily believe or agree with that. To me, as a man, we're like part of our purpose, and the reason that we're here is to protect our women. And for me, I can't call them our women and not be in a paternal protective stance or mode. Both men and women, it's hard enough out there. Within the diaspora in particular, we don't need perceived wars. We don't need to be at odds with one another. We don't need to be at each other's throats. We should be the refuge from the storm. We should be one another's refuge from the storm. And so next week, okay, that being said, on next week, we're going to talk about personal accountability. Personal accountability. I'm going to leave it open because that can be, it starts right here with you, with us, with self. And then it permeates throughout all relationships, dealings, and doings, from the professional domain, your job, your business, to your professional domain and your intimate domain. So we're going to talk about it all right? Personal accountability. We appreciate y'all rocking with us. Smash the bell if you're on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook. Somebody pull up the ats and all that, at 4 Elements United. Tell a friend to tell a friend. No, this isn't adult entertainment. No, we're not going to be on here talking stuff and being toxic. We're going to have real conversations. We appreciate y'all for rocking with us. And until next week, this is the Elements signing off.
Peace.
Peace.